Welcome to another marvellous horror movie review show with myself, Karen, and John. And we have three interesting picks this week. Quite unique.
I gave you one go at introducing the show and you failed miserably, so I'll take over duties again next week. This is episode 31. It's probably the only unedited, unscripted horror movie review show on the net that I know of.
Yeah, but you don't really know of any, do you? So
yeah, that's how I know, by not looking. Because this is the only one that exists in my mind. And this week, it's a bit of a special, like last week. This is the Johnny Late Night special. As in, back in the day, you actually used to have the chance to see some weird stuff on general television late at night. And these are three movies that you've never seen before. So it's the first time viewing for you. And those movies were...
Yeah, we started with American Gothic.
Mm-hmm.
We then...
How unprofessional.
Just let me turn that on to focus. Focus. Stop slurping. So we then watched Sleepstalker.
Yeah, we should have got that out.
Too late now. So you ruined it this time.
Oh, there it is.
And we rounded it off with Maniac Cop, which I think is the only one that I'd actually heard of. Yes. So I'm assuming it's quite a cult.
Yeah, it's certainly the most well-known out of those three movies. And yeah, these are movies that all made somewhat of an impression on me in different ways.
So I wonder why it's taken you this long to show them to me.
Well, Sleepstalker doesn't come on television anymore, obviously. I used to have it on DVD. So I had to find that again. It wasn't hard. Everyone's trying to get rid of them. Lucky for me. Maniac Cop, yeah, I've seen that a few times. And American Gothic, I stayed away from on purpose, and then we'll discuss as to why I did that.
Interesting.
And also, though, you couldn't really get a hold of that. It wasn't easy to get a hold of. Recently, I think Scream Factory have released a special edition Blu-ray. That was done in more recent years. Up until that point, it just wasn't on anything, so it wasn't easy to see. So what is your ranking for these three movies? Three very different movies.
They kind of are, but I feel like they work quite well together.
That's why I put them in a special.
So I think going from the bronze in third place for me was Sleepstalker. And then in second place...
What?
In second place... Oh, and this week I'm ranking them purely on my enjoyment of them, by the way. In second place I would put Maniac Cop, actually. So that means that American Gothic got the gold from me this week.
So you just said that you've ranked them in terms of enjoyment, which is exactly what I've done. Not so much in terms of what is the better production kind of thing. So in third place, I've put Maniac Cop. In second place, Sleepstalker. And top of the lot, American Gothic.
Okay, so at least we agree on the top spot.
Yeah, I know that technically, and probably in all ways, Maniac Cop is just a better made film than Sleepstalker, clearly. Probably maybe even a better made film than American Gothic, I don't know, but they're certainly up for argument. But yeah, for me, it's just in terms of pure enjoyment, whether that was because it was thrilling or because it was just flat out stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we begin with my third spot, Sleepstalker?
Yeah, okay.
So why don't you regale us with your first memory of this one then?
This one was when I was in my first year of uni and back on after a late night out, switch on the television drunk, and me and this great guy called Jeff Lamb, we came across Sleepstalker and we never looked back. And after seeing Sleepstalker, a few months later, it was my birthday, and he was the guy that got it for me on DVD. I don't know where he found it, but he managed to get it for me on DVD, and it was one of the best presents I've ever received in my life. Movie-wise.
Alright. Okay, so that's actually not as early as I kind of thought.
No, they're at different times. This is the latest one.
Right, so Sleepstalker. I have to admit as well, this one is the one that's stuck least in my mind.
Well, lucky I've got my trusty notes then.
I'm a little bit confused by some points, I think, as well.
What's confusing about it?
Well, we'll get into it because it's more towards the end that I'm confused.
Right.
I'm confused.
Yeah.
I also have notes, actually, for this week. I felt the inspiration to do a little John thing, so let's say Sleepstalker.
What you've done, though, you've used technology. As I've bemoaned before, do not trust your phone. Get a pen and paper.
Well, John, my phone isn't like 50 years old like yours, so mine's only like 30, so mine still works.
As I've said again, I've said it once before, I said, I don't want a phone. I hate having a phone. All that comes through is like bad news.
Anyway,
people
so
trying to contact me. I don't want to talk to anybody.
For Sleepstalker, my very first bullet point that I thought was pertinent to write down was, Dad has a yo-yo.
As in Sleepstalker's dad.
So there's a scene when there's a mum and dad and their kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're having like some conversation. I literally can't remember what the tone was, what the conversation was, nothing. All I remember was being like, the dad's there just chatting to his son whilst like yo-yoing. And I was like, that is so random. And lo and behold, it has zero to do with anything else. So I guess the actor was just like, oh, I want to be doing something.
I think the memory of that...
I'll do a yo-yo.
The memory of that scene's been banished for me because I think you used to start going, yo, 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 yo. We love yo, 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 yo. If you know, you know.
Okay. And, yeah, so there was a lot of funky stuff looking through this. Oh, I also wrote, cool hat, white boy.
Well, you're once again, you're getting way too far ahead of everything and just like spouting things left, right, and centre.
Okay.
The movie is about... Right, what's the movie about?
There's a Sandman.
No. There's not just a Sandman, is there? There's a guy, our main character, Griffin, and as a young lad, he has been haunted by this serial killer who goes around murdering happy families. And Griffin's family gets murdered, and he's the only one left as a young lad. He's probably like 9 years old, something like this. Actually...
So it's his dad when he's a kid who's doing the
yo-yoing, yeah.
Very important.
As I said, yeah. And at certain times, he's 7 years old, then he's 9 years old, and then years later, when we see the Sandman, before he becomes the Sandman, in the electric chair, Griffin's completely grown up, and the Sandman hasn't aged like one day. So there are massive problems with them telling how old he is. But anyway, after Griffin has had, he's been menaced, and he has this memory in his head of this murderer and stuff. He keeps track of the murderer and what's going on in his trial and stuff, and he finally gets put to death, or is about to be put to death. But just before this, a so-called priest, turns out it's just a voodoo guy, comes into his cell to give him his last rites. But instead of giving him his last rites, he gives him some kind of like incantation and a little cross thing, which seems to be made of glass, and gives him the secret power. Which
and glass is made of
course,
sand.
yes. There you go. I'm glad you picked up on that. And so they release Mr. Sandman for his last, walk about the yard, and he goes out there and he, makes himself bleed in the hand and puts this blood in the sand, and lo and behold, he comes back as said Sandman / Sleepstalker to come back. He's got 3 days to track down Griffin and finish the job that he couldn't finish all those years ago.
Yeah, the whole premise I was a bit confused by. So originally the Sleepstalker, when Griffin's a kid, he's just a regular human being.
Yeah, he's
killer
a human being killer. Yeah, he's just a serial killer
who likes to sing little sleepy time songs, right?
Yeah, and he carries that on when he is the Sandman. Yeah.
So are they saying then that this voodoo priest guy has made him essentially immortal then when
he'll only be immortal if he kills Griffin. He's got 3 days to kill Griffin, otherwise he's just going to go back to being dead.
But then didn't it turn out as well that it's like Griffin's brother or something weird like that?
I mean, at the end of the movie, when we get a kind of a recap,
I was confused.
It turns out that this guy was apparently part of Griffin's family somehow.
Yeah.
But he looks way too old to be his brother.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. The ages don't make sense. But,
and the whole thing was a bit... again, it's like you have to kind of follow along just because it's a movie, but when you start questioning things...
We're probably making it sound more confusing than it is, just because there are a load of random things put in there.
Well, no, because I remember watching it and being like, why is he suddenly like this and not like that, and why is this...
As I explained to you with a lot of straight to DVD kind of stuff, you just got to let it slide.
I also remember very vividly. There's a point when there's like I called it the Sandman transferal. So, and there's like some seriously funky music and lots of like bright, flashy stuff. It's kind of like disco meets horror transformation.
Yeah, here comes
and then
the
it's just
Sandman.
Like, that was very interesting.
When back to the story, so when we've got the backstory of Griffin's family being killed, we're then transported into the future, and Griffin is now a wannabe journalist. And as I said, he's still keeping tabs on the Sandman's whereabouts and how far along his execution is. Actually, I think he believes he's been executed, so it's like a big day for him.
I also didn't find it very clear to see that he was supposed to be adult Griffin. I had to ask you. I was like, is that supposed to be the adult version? Because it didn't.
Yeah, that's adult Griffin, and the ladies
He's
love.
got a cool hat.
The ladies love Griffin. Remember in the diner scene when we first see Griffin, he's on the phone and he gets off the phone and he's like, "Yes, I got it. It's gonna break my career. I got the interview with Dog." Yeah, and then the two ladies really love that, and I think the reason the ladies love Griffin is because he looks like the token white member of a 90s, New Jack swing group. He's got the backwards granddad cap. He's got the goatee facial hair.
Yeah.
He's wearing a t-shirt with a waistcoat over it, some baggy jeans, and some Timberland style boots. So he's got it going on.
So white. Which he is, but then
I think it looks pretty fresh.
The funny thing is, so this interview thing that he says is gonna. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't doing anything.
I thought you were like, I was gonna say it. So this interview thing that he's landed
with Dog.
It's
Dawg.
Dog.
That's how you pronounce it. It's not dog. It's the dog.
It's like in.
So you know that he's a
hood.
street gangster.
Yeah.
So he's landed the interview, but one of his the two ladies that really fancy Griffin at the beginning, just swooning over him at the diner. One of them is a wannabe photographer, so he brings her along, even though she's scared to go to the hood.
This is another thing. So he like forces this wafy white girl to go into.
Was it matter what colour she is?
Well, I don't know. I'm guessing where they're going, she's going to stand out more, isn't she? Especially next to him. And he's like, "Oh, if you want to be a photographer, you have to do this." And she's like, "Oh, but isn't it dangerous? Like, this is a notoriously dangerous area, and we don't know what's going to happen." But he's like, "Well, if you're not going to take it seriously, then F you, essentially." But then later on...
he lays it on thick to her,
he's really like... And then later on, when he goes to have a face-off with, like, the Sandman, then he's like, "Oh, it's too dangerous for you." I thought that was really weird. I was like, no, how is...
Well,
no.
Because one is an organised interview with a street thug, and one is a battle with a supernatural being made of sand. One is infinitely more dangerous than the other. Anyway, let's focus on Dog for a minute. Because when we meet Dog, he is your classic, cliche, Hispanic street gangster.
Oh, God.
And, he says all the kind of cliche stuff. So at the point where Griffin finds out that the Sandman is, at large and coming after him, he goes to Dog to try and buy a gun off him. And as he goes to buy this gun, Dog says to him, he gives him some sage advice. He says, "You know how to smoke a fool, Holmes? You get real close, ese, and you blow him away, pendejo." Pa.
Yeah, the amount of times that actor had to say ese.
No, his favourite word was pendejo. There's another bit where Griffin has to go and meet him again, and Griffin starts asking about the hood and the inhabitants of the hood, and Dog is like, "Here in the barrio, we are all dead, pendejo." He's got the street knowledge, and when Griffin finally gets his interview with Dog, there's a scene where it cuts to Griffin and the lady sitting in the car, and they've got the window rolled down, and they're playing the tape of the interview, and they're like self-satisfied, like,
That was so good.
This is gonna launch our career. Thank you, Dog.
Yeah. I also, at that bit where he goes to procure a gun from the gang members.
Do you know how to smoke a fool, ese?
I wrote down in my notes, because I was like, wait.
Get real close.
Are you going to let me talk? Just stop it.
Pendejo.
In my notes, I genuinely at one point was like, wait, so is he going to defeat the Sandman by joining a gang? I thought he was going to try and
No,
join the gang.
He's not going for a gang initiation.
I know, but that's what I thought he was going to do. I thought he was like, oh, I need protection, let me go join the gang. And I was like, oh, he's just trying to get a gun off them.
I just had an idea, actually, that Griffin, as the token white member of a vocal harmony group from the 90s, he could have brought in Daug as part of his group, and then you have like one of each. You know, they like to have representation in these groups. And Griffin would be like the nice guy that all ladies can relate to, and Daug would be like the dangerous guy.
Yeah. He is exactly the look from the kind of band that I would have hated growing up.
Yeah, you know.
And also the gangster
Colour Me
guy,
Bad, Belle Biv DeVoe.
Daug is like, this is the guy that's going to write my interview? It's like... But looks can be deceiving. You know, you can't judge people on looks. I was just like, you might have wanted to take the hat off before you went into the hood.
We've clearly given the kind of level of the acting and the writing once we go into grown-up Griffin time.
Right.
When it starts off and when it flashes back to the horror scenes, the horrific scenes that the Sandman as a child is going through, where he has his lips stitched up and it has the lullaby playing in the background, more so without the lyrical content. And it has a painting of a clown on the wall and kind of like trippy camera work. I think all that is really, really well executed. So the horror scenes, not so much horror scenes, but the flashback scenes in this dark bedroom are really well done. And all of a sudden, all that just goes completely out the window when it brings it into present day, you know, action.
And something that made me laugh.
So jarring.
Every time it happened, because it happened a lot. Obviously, so the Sandman can move around in the form of sand.
Well, here we go. So when he's turned into the Sandman, when he turns himself into the Sandman,
yeah,
and this is all through the voodoo guy, I was thinking to myself, you know, does he get a choice as to what he comes back as? Because the Sandman is a pretty useless. He doesn't have any good powers. You're about to say that he can like kind of get through vents and stuff as sand, and he's no good in the sun or in the rain. He can't be out in the rain and he can't be out in the sun.
So the point that I was about to make, when he comes to every set as sand and then forms into a human, like, he'll come through vents or grates or pipes or whatever it might be, and every single time they've
it's just
flipped
backwards,
the camera upside down.
Yeah, if you
and just poured sand, so it's like it's pouring out, and then because they flipped the camera, it looks like it's going up, but it's so obvious what it's doing. It just doesn't look supernatural at all.
Like if he had a choice as to what he's coming back as, it's like is it like Mortal Kombat Street Fighter? You get to pick your guy, and he has his secret weapons, and he's gone, yeah, I'll be the Sandman. Or does the voodoo guy only have access to supernatural sand abilities, which are travelling through open vents and things like this, and reciting nursery rhymes in a very slow manner?
Yeah, it's supposed to be all creepy, but
it's chilling.
Was it?
Chilling. When the bow breaks.
And like you've just said,
the cradle.
Right, if anyone's doing a remake of Sleepstalker, here you go.
Hey!
That was the other thing that really grated on me the whole time. So we find out there's some scene super early on where we realise, okay, so water like makes him disperse essentially, so it defeats him, and then we've still got like an hour of this movie where our main guy is like, oh, how am I gonna defeat the Sleepstalker? How am I gonna do it? And it's like, get a bloody hose, you idiot.
Well,
just get a hose.
Well, it's California. There might be, a hose ban. But secondly, they're in California, so there's not going to be a lot of rain, but you also can't come out into the sun. And we don't find out that he can't come out into the sun until Griffin is imprisoned in the most empty prison I've ever seen in my life. And then the Sandman comes through a vent again, and he's about to take out Griffin through the bars, but then the sun starts to shine through the window, and the Sandman pulls back and he says, "The sun has saved you this time, but there will be others." And then he magically
I guess because
goes back through the
Sandman
vent
can
again.
only
But
do his job at night because, he's supposed to put
No,
people to sleep
but
and
that's
stuff.
the whole point. So where is he going at night? Because he's kind of like, his problems are he's a mix between, bless you, he's a mix between Dracula, who can't come out in the sun, and a gremlin who can't get wet.
Yeah, so he's
that's
so
his problem.
fallible, and yet they're like tearing their hair out as to how to destroy him.
I was thinking, the California can't be a good place for the Sandman to be hanging out.
No.
And where is he going at night? Secondly, Griffin could just move to, Seattle, where it rains for 9 months of the year, and for 9 months of the year he's pretty good. He's not going to do anything.
Well, I was also thinking, because the whole thing, like you said, he's only got 3 nights to kill Griffin, and therefore continue his own existence. Which I think Griffin at a certain point does find out about. So I was like, again, just go have a shower for the last night. Just or go sit in a pool or something, then it's all over.
What about
this film has no gravitas because
it's Sleepstalker.
there's no it's so stupid.
You're expecting too much from it.
So stupid.
What do you think about the Sandman's get-up? His look?
It's fine.
Just fine?
Yeah, just fine.
He looks like Data from Star Trek. I'm not a Trekkie, but everyone should know who Data is. This ultra pale dude with slick back hair. I think he's supposed to be like a droid or something. But he just looks like Data in a trench coat who's been put away in a cupboard for 50 years and been released, and now he's a bit dusty and sandy.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Yeah. I didn't hate this movie. It made me giggle a few times, which I guess is good. But honestly, I just thought this was kind of... my favourite way to describe things, it was pretty dumb.
So what about the Sandman versus, where's he standing in terms of iconic from, Sandman versus Freddy versus Jason versus Pinhead versus Chucky? Is he in that realm? Would you want a Sandman, NECA figure? A Sandman poster?
No.
I would.
You're an idiot. Yeah, no, this film...
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah. This film just
God.
didn't really do it for me. And the voodoo guy as well was good at what he did, but I was like, this is...
Well, where did
random.
where did the voodoo guy come from, and where is his magical stone throne, which he's sitting on, which was pretty cool.
And why does he
has
want
great contact
this
lenses.
to happen?
Well, they
What's his motivation?
They open he must get some kind of supernatural payment. At the end of the movie, they set it up for a sequel because I think the Sandman has been dried out by the sun, and the Voodoo Man goes and collects him from a bin, and we just see this guy hunched over collecting some sand from a bin, and he turns around like with his contact lens eyes, and it ends.
Right.
But they haven't done the sequel yet, and it's been 30 years, I think.
Oh dear.
So
No
I'm still waiting. Do you know how they smoke a fool essay? You get real close and you blow him away. It's worth seeing just for that. That's why I put it in number 2, is the straight street barrio guy.
I did write in my notes as well, WTF is this gangster?
Well, I thought it was pretty threatening.
But yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything that I Oh, that was another thing. So the chick who's like photographer person or whatever, she's in a confrontation with the Sandman at one point, and she ends up jumping or falling out of a pretty high window to escape him. And I just remember seeing this because she must be at least like 4 stories up. She falls out of this window. And there's like a tiny bit of garbage or whatever that she does land on the floor.
It's safety
but
garbage.
She has not a single scratch, bruise, sore spot. She just gets up and like walks away like, oh yeah, that was fun.
These bags are rubbish. It breaks her landing. It's soft. I imagine that the rubbish bags were filled with tissues, so...
Bubble wrap.
There, that does that. How about all the way that you think, a supernatural Sandman could kill someone? And they don't really do it. I mean, if he's making himself turn into sand and going through vents, why does he just turn himself into sand and like force himself into someone's mouth and choke him out with sand? Well, the one good kill we get is when he sandstorms a fool. He turns into sand and somehow it brings about wind. I don't know if maybe that's one of his powers, that he can summon wind to make himself blow around as sand. And then he'll strip you of your skin and your flesh, and you end up just a smoking pile of bones.
That was another thing. They do this in they do in other horror movies, but it really stuck out to me again with this one. I was like, so the whole object the whole objective of the Sandman guy is to kill Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
And he has Griffin within his reach so many times, and Griffin escapes. And then there'll just be some random person who's like, oh, I'm going to sandstorm this person and instantly kill them. It's like, well, why didn't you just do that with Griffin earlier?
Because Griffin is integral to the plot. And we need Griffin. And
It's lazy.
I want to see
lazy filmmaking.
I want to see him make it as a reporter / you know, Belle Biv DeVoe type singer.
Yeah.
Could Griffin break your heart if he was in a said music video? With his hat and his goatee and his short sleeve shirt with a waistcoat over it? No?
I think I'd rather go on a date with the gangster guy.
All of that. See, I also think you've cast me wrong. See, you've put me as a Sandman. I think I'd be the barrio guy.
No.
That would be the one that I want to be.
Yeah, well, you might want to be, but you'd be the Sandman, 100%.
I don't know if that's kind of complimentary, because I'm the lead. I'm the antagonist.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this one?
This movie is absolutely fantastic.
Debatable.
For many different reasons. Unique. I've never seen a killer made of sand, apart from maybe in Spider-Man 3, but that doesn't count because...
Yeah, but the Sandman is not a new concept, so it's not...
Oh yeah, he also, when he goes and kills people, like, the whole thing is he says, the children, they need to go to sleep. And he'll go and visit the children and he'll pour literal sand in their eyes. That seems to be one thing that he likes to do as well. He'll just pour sand into kids' eyes. I'm thinking, well, that doesn't kill them, it just gives them an itchy eye, like a bit of irritation.
I thought he kills people first and then pours sand on them.
Something to mention, actually, when the young Sandman in the flashbacks, when he's got his lips all stitched up, that is Giuseppe, I've forgotten his surname, but it's Officer Winston from Cabin Fever. Go inside, just party, man.
Is it really?
That's him, yeah, in one of his first roles. And talking of Giuseppe, he's been just off the radar / missing since 2015. He's just been gone. No one knows where he is. Maybe he's the Sandman. Maybe the prophecy came true.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. So that's your number 3, my number 2.
Yeah, and before we continue, I'm going to go find a tissue because my cold is killing me, and then we'll move on to the next.
This is the true horror. Disease-ridden.
Maniac.
Cop!
So, apparently, the first thought that came to my mind was that it takes this cop a very, very long time to get into uniform.
This is the great Maniac Cop from, I think, like early 80s. Got Bruce Campbell, Richard Roundtree, who of course is Shaft, genre legend. Tom Atkins is in this, directed by William Lustig, written by Larry Cohen, who did a movie that we watched recently, the Matthew Lillard one. I think it's called Messages Deleted.
Okay.
That's the last movie that he did, and is nowhere near the pomp of his Maniac Cop days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, we get the intro.
I thought I just saw a ghost. Something just moved on the bed. Anyway, we'll get back. I'll search that out later. So I told you we should have bought a REM pod.
The slow intro that we get with the, credits and stuff opening.
It's the opening credits, yeah.
Is close up shots of someone getting into their police uniform.
Yeah, the Maniac Cop.
Yeah.
Purdell.
And it just struck me. I was like, you must set aside like a good half an hour every morning just to get ready because it's taking forever. It's
just setting the scene, setting the mood. It's very cinematic. I've written down it was great.
Yeah. And then, well, do you want to summarise?
There's not much to this one.
Know?
The big thing is the American Gothic. Maniac Cop was just one of those movies where you'd heard about it. Again, you couldn't see it. So when I finally saw it, I was young. I was probably too young to actually appreciate the movie because I was like, Maniac Cop. I'd seen it in the video store and things like this with the cinema artwork.
It's a great title, isn't it?
It is. It's a superb title, and that's what really got like my blood pumping. I was like, Maniac Cop. Like, I've got to see this movie. I've got to see it. And when I finally saw it, I was slightly disappointed just because it was more horror action. It goes into a bit of an action movie towards the end, which is what not what I was expecting. It wasn't anywhere near as violent as what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But you got to understand, I saw this movie when I was like 8, so I couldn't quite take in everything. And when I saw it, just 4 or 5 years later, that's when I started to appreciate all the grittiness of it. Things like the cinematography, the dark New York City night. Even though most of the movie, I believe, is like shot in Los Angeles, even though it's supposed to be New York City.
I was going to say, though, that is right up your alley with the whole, the gritty, dirty, steamy, low lit.
It looks brilliant. That's my big overriding, kind of memory and enjoyment of the movie is the gritty cinematography of the whole thing. And I love some of the kills as well. Don't know if you want to mention what you were going to mention after the cop dressing up at the beginning. I love, by the way, in the dress up, the gloves. The gloves are there's something there. There's just something about it, putting on those white gloves.
Yeah, I think with this one, because we in the last episode we talked about how I didn't fully understand the Sam Raimi serious with a bit of ridiculous in it. And I feel like this one had slight aspects of that as well.
Well, Sam Raimi helped William Lustig get the funding for this movie. So remember the parade scene?
Yeah.
That was shot on a few cameras, and it was Sam Raimi that had... I don't know if it's all completely correct about my information here, but Sam Raimi had a lot to do with it for then shooting that scene with William Lustig and then getting the funding after doing that. And he's also in the movie. I think Sam Raimi is the parade reporter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there you go.
Fun little side note there. But what was my point with this? I don't know. I'm just going to go on to my next bullet point, which was that there's a bad beach with a purse. So the first kill that we see, it's one of those, it's a character that is only used for this part of the story to introduce our killer. And she's a diner worker, I think, and she's on her way home, and 2 wrong-uns are trying to mug her. And as she's getting away, she thinks she's saved because she sees this cop. But of course, it's the Maniac cop, so she ends up being offed by him. But my favourite thing, I think, in the entire movie was when the 2 wrong-uns were trying to get her, and she's got her purse, and instead of just being like, oh yeah, here, have my money, which to be fair I would do, because you don't know if they've got a knife or a gun or whatever, but she's like, no, I worked hard for this, and she starts bashing them with her purse and kicking them, and I was like, yeah, she's a bad bitch. So it was sad when she died.
Yeah. As I mentioned, some of the kills, so one of my favourite ones is when the couple are driving in their car.
Right.
And they're stopped by the Maniac cop.
Okay,
and
the miming cop, might I add.
Yeah, the guy gets out and Maniac cop is like,
he
stand
does
here. And the lady's watching what's going on. He pulls out his knife, slices the guy, and in slow motion, chucks him into the windscreen, and the windscreen cracks and you get all the blood. And again, in all the low light with all the nice, bokeh in the background. Beautiful. And then the cement death.
Cement smush, as I called it.
Cement smush, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a guy just, going home after performing or whatever, and Maniac cop cuffs him. So now you get this guy running away, cuffed, with his hands behind his back, and he falls over into some fresh cement and gets his head smushed into it, and then instantly we cut to the next day, and there's those power drills trying to get him out. Again, that's what I meant with a slight tongue-in-cheek humour aspect to it. It's so dark, this guy's just drowned in cement. But then with the drills taking him out, it was kind of
one of the aspects where I'm talking about where I wouldn't have appreciated that at 8 years old. But by the time I was 15, I was loving that.
So, actually, when you mentioned the couple in the car, because I think that's the first death after the...
Yeah, the lady.
The lady. And I did think it was slightly odd. I believe their reaction. I believe you would do what they did, but I still think it's very strange. Wouldn't you question the fact that this policeman is not saying a word to you? He's just gesticulating.
Well, he's the law,
I know, but I was
people can be
I wrote in my notes, I was like,
miming
cop? Miming cop. And yeah, he's very dramatic with his miming. And when he throws the guy onto the windscreen, he's... The actor, obviously, is very dramatic, and he has he's very still, and then
I
very
don't know how
big.
to pronounce his surname. It's D''Zar. Robert Czar, I think is how you pronounce it. Yeah.
But for this bit, when he throws the guy, he does it really dramatic. But it's like his hands are going the direction he's throwing, of course, but his face is turned away, and I assume that's because they wanted to keep the identity a secret, because they try to like intimate that it's someone else later on in the film.
Talking about the wrong direction, Bruce Campbell plays the lead cop along with Tom Atkins in this. So Tom Atkins is the older like detective. Bruce Campbell is the younger one.
And Bruce Campbell's the one we're led to believe at one point might be Maniac.
Well, Bruce Campbell is kind of framed for it almost.
Yeah.
Or he's like a scapegoat for it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the framing in the truest sense, but he's made the scapegoat for it, and his character is married in the movie, but he's also having an affair with one of the lady officers. And when he leaves for duty, Bruce Campbell's character is married, and before he leaves for duty this evening, his wife follows him to where he's going, and she tracks him to this motel. And as she gets to the door, the closed door, we can hear Bruce Campbell moaning, grunting, making so-called sexual noises. Then his wife opens the door, and you're the one that noticed this, by the way. Wife opens the door, and Bruce Campbell is in bed with his work colleague, but he's the little spoon and she's the big spoon. And it just begs the question, what the hell was going on in there? Because unless it was a nice reach around.
Yeah, because there were no female noises.
No.
It was just him, like,
grunting.
breathing.
Yeah, breathing pretty heavily.
Yeah, I don't know what they were experimenting. Maybe his wife didn't, want to go there.
I'm not sure anyone's ever brought this up, probably in a review of Maniac Cop, as to what the hell was being done to Bruce Campbell's character in bed. And were we supposed to notice this? Is this purposeful? He's just a straight freak, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not very clear as to why he and his wife aren't... I mean, it's obvious from their interaction that they're not getting on anymore, and they've been to counselling and not been counselling and stuff, and she suspects him of being the maniac cop because she's been led to think this. And in fact, the reason she does follow him after all is because she gets a call again. So she doesn't know who is calling her, but this female voice is saying, oh, is he going to go out and kill again? And that's why she's like, okay, I've got to go find out for myself what is going on. So yeah, she finds him in, we don't know what sexual act. Very intriguing.
What I do love also about that scene is that Bruce Campbell's character has taken his pretty hot work colleague for this affair at the Budget Inn class.
Has to be kept secret, so...
You can do better you can go to some other kind of inn, middling inn, but Budget Inn. Budget Inn is about as low as you can get.
Maybe that's the only place to do these undiscovered sex acts that...
Or maybe he's an underpaid cop. And he can't do much, especially if you've got to, pay for two women. I mean, he's probably kind of brought it on himself, really, hasn't he?
She's also, so she's undercover as a hooker, normally. So she's catching unsuspecting men, or I guess maybe women as well, who want to pick them up. She's very comfortable in that job. Because, the one guy that we see her kind of ply... her policeman
she's probably done it a thousand times.
He's like, oh, I will go home and think, but I'll be thinking of you. And she's like, yeah, I can't arrest you for that.
Yeah.
She likes it.
Laureen Landon, her name is, and she's a star of a movie called Hundra, Hundra, which is about a warrior woman who's raised in a society of warrior women, and they don't take no crap from any man until she falls in love. But we get to see her ride a horse naked in that movie. So, one to check out. Because she's quite the beauty.
That's really random. Okay. Yeah, she does a great job. In fact, I love them all. But I think possibly my favourite is, you said his name, but I don't know it, the older cop.
Tom Atkins. Before you go into Tom Atkins, he is... probably the lead guy in Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which is the Halloween with no Michael Myers, with the masks.
I know, I've seen it.
He's leading that, and he's also kind of like the male lead somewhat in the original Fog,
Okay.
And he's the guy that picks up Jamie Lee Curtis in his truck.
Right.
And they've never met before because she's hitchhiking. And then it cuts the next scene and they've just done it in bed. So he's a quick mover, Tom Atkins.
Well, he does say a couple of things that I think nowadays PC Brigade would be like, how dare he?
Yeah, well, screw the PC Brigade.
Brigade. But I loved the character, and I loved him.
I always love watching Tom Atkins.
And I was so sad when Maniac Cop got him. He chucks him out the window in the end, and I was like, no.
Well, there you go. The movie made you feel.
My favourite.
It's supposed to be a pulp movie where, just kill everybody or whatever. And, there you are. Hearts bleeding for Tom Atkins. And as rightly so it should be. He's a great
that made
guy.
me sad.
Something that confused me as, a young and 8-year-old. I'd already seen Evil Dead, and it terrified the life out of me. Obviously, Bruce Campbell is in that. And obviously, Bruce Campbell has a big chin, right? So when I got to see Maniac Cop, I'm not aware if I was even, aware that Bruce Campbell was his name or anything like this.
Right.
But I kind of must have been, considering the story I'm about to tell. So Maniac Cop came after Evil Dead for me. So I thought that because Maniac Cop was the title of the movie, that Bruce Campbell would be, the title name, the Maniac Cop. So when you see Maniac Cop in like the darkness and the shadows, you see that he has this huge chin, but it's obviously prosthetic. So what I thought they'd done is that they'd put a prosthetic on Bruce Campbell's chin. It turns out it wasn't a prosthetic. And Robert Zarr, he had this condition called cherubism, which gives you extra bone growth, and that's why he has such a...
Yeah, he has an incredibly distinct face.
Yes, and so I was confused as an 8-year-old. I was like, oh wait, who's this guy that kind of looks like Ash from the Evil Dead, who is against Maniac Cop Evil Dead Ash? And they also both, at one point in their careers, had the nickname The Chin. So it might be the only movie ever where two people have been nicknamed The Chin before. Chinny Chin Chin.
I can't say I really noticed Bruce Campbell's chin as being particularly anything. Bruce Campbell looks pretty just average to me.
Well, compared to the other Chin, I guess, in this movie, yeah.
And also, when they tried to insinuate that Bruce Campbell's cop might have been Maniac Cop, I was like, well, no, he can't be, because he's way more slender and
How about the fact that Maniac Cop is just a supernatural being? He's dead, and there's not really an explanation for that. Well, I asked you about this. I
was like, I'm so confused. So essentially, turns out that Maniac Cop was an actual policeman who was a bit trigger happy, but a lot of the other people on the force looked up to because he put loads of people away.
Yeah.
And then it's not said what exactly, but at some point he's said, well, you've taken your duties too far. We're actually going to put you in jail. Mm-hmm. So they send him to Sing Sing along with all the inmates he's
sign him a death sentence, essentially.
And then
screwed over.
We find out that he refuses to be put in segregation for his own safety or whatever. He's apparently just doesn't want to. So then he's a
maniac.
He gets attacked by these inmates, and that's when everyone thinks he's dead. But we later find out that actually his girlfriend, who's also on the force, convinced the mortician to write him off as dead and all this, but let her have him. And the mortician's like, well, I thought he was legally dead. He was so brain damaged and all of this. So he was from the brink of death, and then it turns out obviously he's regained some abilities and gone off killing people, but
maybe the
like
voodoo
you
guy
said,
from Sleepstalker came and saw him.
Yeah, maybe, because I didn't understand. I was like, okay, fair enough. So he's not dead, but then why is he completely unkillable? Because they point blank shoot him so many times, and they say it themselves. So like he won't die, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense.
He's an undead cop, I assume. Maybe he's got his bulletproof vest on. They're not blowing away.
I'm pretty sure she said she shot at his head and stuff, and nothing does anything. So apparently he just can't die.
Well, he has cherubism, so he's protected by God.
I thought the performance by his girlfriend, by the way, was fantastic. I loved her performance.
Maniac Cop's girlfriend.
Yeah, so
she was really cool.
We see her, she's in like a leg brace and stuff. Turns out she tried to off herself when they sent him to Sing Sing, which she didn't succeed in offing herself. She just maimed herself. Mm-hmm. But she's continued to kind of stay in touch, and she she knows what's going on, and it seems she's the one who was calling Bruce
her.
Campbell's wife.
Yeah.
And making it seem like it was Bruce Campbell. So, yeah, she has set him up, really.
Because she's pleading with because her husband, Officer Purdell, Maniac cop, has taken it too far. Cordell.
They're not husband and wife. They were just lovers. But it doesn't matter. Anyway.
Yeah, well, either way. They're together. So she's taken offence now to the fact that he's just killing all and sundry rather than just the people who she considers are responsible for all the wrongs in his life. But, you could... I sympathise with Maniac Cop because I would eat away at you what's happened, being screwed over by, the people who are supposed to employ you, protect you. So as far as I'm concerned, take free reign and kill who you want.
Well, no, because those people have nothing to do with it. What did that random guy...
He's full of rage.
Cement smush guy have to do with it? What did that girl, the poor diner girl with the smashy bag have to do with it?
I mean, I wasn't so much talking about her. I was talking about the other cops that he starts to kill and things like this. What do you think about... Do you think it actually says anything... Do you think it said anything, in terms of socially, or with the idea of cops and their power? And
well, they didn't really go into it, but again, I thought it was quite interesting with the
not that I care about a social message. I'm saying, do you think there's one really in there?
Well, as I was saying.
Yeah, but I have to clarify myself.
Okay, they didn't really clarify what exactly he did to apparently warrant being put in jail himself, but. I did think it was interesting that they put him as a hero for the average guy cop. So, our older detective really looked up to him in all of this, and we meet other people in the force who came across him.
This is the 80s, though. It's more hardcore.
But then it seems he was too trigger happy, and they're like, oh, even killers got rights or something. I don't know. I do feel like there is something to be seen in it, but I wouldn't say it's like slap you around the face. And it's much more like you can take different things from it if you want.
You're not hit over the head with a shovel with it, certainly. That's why I even asked the question, do you think it even had anything to say about that? Because if it was, it's kind of like on the undertow kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot you can read into it, but I don't know how intentional it was.
One of the things that, you just brought it up, one of the things that did, resonate with me, well, not resonate, but something that caught my attention was when, if it was Tom Atkins or his colleague who says... even criminals these days or murderers have rights. And now that's gone like through the roof where almost like the victim is more to blame these days than anyone who's doing any wrongdoing. Not to get into that, but that is a
that's why I think I noticed it. I was like, there are things you could take from this, but it was quite complicated. I don't think there was one overarching like clear this is right and this is wrong. It was more realistic.
I think it had a comment on everything. It was quite balanced
exactly,
in that way, definitely.
But
so how about Maniac Cop 2 and 3? I would have thought you said definitely. You don't care about watching Maniac Cop 2 and 3? Well, you're a big letdown. How about
I never
this
got to finish saying why I liked the girlfriends, so I didn't quite get to expand on why I really liked the woman's performance who
Tom Atkins. No, sorry.
Cordell's girlfriend in the force. So when Tom Atkins' character kind of suspects who and what and how and why everything is going on, he goes to her office, which is sort of like the clerical records department. Yeah. And
Sheree North, the actress's name, plays Sally Noland.
Right. And he tries to, I guess, fathom from her response to stuff how her involvement is and all of this. But anyway, you see just really subtly at first this Sally Nolan woman is just so not impressed with him being there. She's like, well, I've been here for 20 years and you've never said hello. And because he like asks, oh, do you have a pen so I can fill out this form? And she's like, oh. But it was such a great subtle thing. Like I fully believed the way she was feeling, and it wasn't a straight like, oh, she's a poor put upon person. Like, she's got a bit of an attitude. But then you see her sensitive side come when he starts talking about the colleague that they both like and all of this. And of course, when she goes to Cordell and is like, why are you killing these innocent people? That wasn't the idea. And then again, when she goes a bit mad at the end and realises, I'm no good for him and stuff. I just think every single moment she's on, she gives such a, like, I love how complex
so I'd say everybody was good in this movie, so do you think that she's the major standout, even though she's kind of a supporting role?
Possibly just because I think she had the most nuance.
Right.
There was so many different things that she showed,
Mm-hmm.
whereas the other ones, like, as much as I love them, they're a bit more like that's the character.
So you've just said that you couldn't give a toss about watching Maniac Cop 2 and 3. In the previous episode, you said you can't give a toss about watching Roadkill / Joyride 2 and 3. But how about this? So this guy who's directed certain movies, I think he directed Bronson with Tom Hardy and Drive, stuff like this. He's disappeared for a while, and for ages and ages and ages, I've been seeing things about Maniac Cop reboot, Maniac Cop reboot, Maniac Cop reboot, and now I think they're going to turn it into a television series, right? And the guy that directed Bronson and Drive is going to do it. And when I read his quote, he was like, "Yeah, we really wanna explore the world." I'm like, "What world?" And so what's he going to call it? That like the MCCU, the Maniac Cop Cinematic Universe, or which there isn't one. And also, I'm just not interested.
That's quite bizarre.
Yeah.
No, again, I mentioned this in the previous thing. I just feel like some films should be left
no more remakes,
as what they are.
For God's sake.
Sequels as well. I just feel like sometimes it's just, if you hadn't already had the idea of something brilliant didn't come to you and you're only doing it because, oh, well, that was kind of a success, let's make another one.
Yeah.
Just don't.
If you have 3 movies lined up and it's all part of the same story, fair enough. But yeah, not just because, this movie's done really well, let's just write another one now and just make it worse than the second one. In all seriousness, I'm just not interested in really any remakes.
No.
Whatsoever, especially the Maniac Cop remake. I'm not sure how much of a, not that it matters, but it's how much really of a appeal does it have. No.
Well, so I didn't put this as my top movie because as much as I think there are many things about it that could have given it the top spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just, again, it's not 100% my personal taste in setting and storyline and stuff. It's just, yeah.
Setting was great. Yeah, the thing that put me up when I was a child and still is a bit I don't enjoy. It's just at the end where you have like all the explosions and you have the daylight scenes where Bruce Campbell's hanging onto the van while being driven around. And they go off into the water and things like this. It just like all of a sudden turns into like Maniac Cop Die Hard. And it wasn't as maniacal as I felt the promise was when I was a child.
Oh yeah, I didn't like when you finally see Maniac Cop in like full light and everything.
With his gashes and everything.
I didn't like the makeup effects for that. I think they could have been better.
What's better, Sandman makeup or Maniac Cop
makeup? I guess they're kind of on a par. I don't know.
I don't know how much Sleepstalker cost, but Maniac Cop is $1 million movie.
Right.
So a low budget film, and done incredibly well.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah. So that's Maniac Cop, which is my bottom pick. Again, technically it's a better movie than Sleepstalker, but I'm just going on straight enjoyment.
Yeah.
There's no, SA gangster in Maniac Cop, so what am I supposed to do with that? So straight at number 1 for both of us is the one and only American Gothic, starring Yvonne De Carlo, who is the lead in The Munsters, so the TV show The Munsters, Lily Munster.
Right.
From I think the 50s. I don't even know when it was out. It's way before our time. And then you've also got Rod Steiger, who plays Pa, and he's an Oscar winner. He won the Oscar for In the Heat of the Night alongside Sidney Poitier. So heavyweight actors in this movie in the lead roles. And again, so this movie, American Gothic, I think it's from 1987 or 88. There was a time in my life where in the summertime I'd go on holiday to Spain, right? And my dad had like an illegal box so we could pick up stuff from anywhere. And sometimes we'd go out for, again, this is when if I hadn't just mentioned, when I was about 8. So we'd go out for dinner and sometimes we'd stay out late. And in my head, because of what had previously happened, I knew that there was a chance that if we came home at like midnight, that my dad might have recorded something like weird the night before, or he would just find something weird on television that night. And this is before the days of being able to pause the television whenever you wanted or stuff like that. So if you wanted to watch it, you had to sit and watch it. So we got back one night after a meal, late at night, and I was sitting on the sofa, and also my dad just found American Gothic, sat and watched it, and until we watched it for this review, I hadn't seen it since. I haven't watched it since, and it wasn't that I wasn't trying to watch it, because as I mentioned, I'd seen if it was available on DVD and things like this, which it wasn't until recently. But there was another reason in that it's one of the first horror movies that I saw, because I'd already seen violent stuff. So by the time I was 4, I'd seen RoboCop, which quenched my thirst for satirical social commentary with ultra violence. So ultra violent cinema was all set by RoboCop. And because my mum then found out that I'd seen that, she was horrified that I'd seen RoboCop at such a young age, but it was already too late. Like the ship had sailed. That's all I wanted to see. So she tried to limit how much of this stuff I could see at that point. So by the time I got to see American Gothic, it's not like I'd been inundated with loads of horror at this point, because my mum wouldn't let me. So then finally we got home with my dad, so he sat and watched this American Gothic movie. And as an adult, later on, I remember the feeling of American Gothic. It made me feel like uneasy. It was a dirty movie. It was very unpleasant. So have you ever watched a movie where you, as a kid, you thought it was kind of hardcore, and then revisited it later and realised it was absolutely stupid?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me,
So many.
for me, that movie is a film called Dangerous Minds, where Michelle Pfeiffer plays like a substitute teacher in an inner city school.
I think I've seen that,
and
actually.
all of the kids are, from the wrong side of the tracks kind of thing.
No, I get it, yeah.
And then later on she comes in, she's like had enough, so she wears leather pants and leather jacket, and she's had enough, and all the kids respond to her. And when I watched that later on as an adult, I was like, this is the dumbest movie I've ever seen. I can't believe at any point I thought, it's hardcore for 9-year-olds basically, even though I think it's rated 15. So that was one of the movies where I was like, okay, I'm not going to watch movies like American Gothic, because it might just spoil the memory for me. Luckily, the ick factor, the unpleasantness, the sheer demented nature of the movie stayed.
I think if anything, it would grow diminished, because there are aspects to it that you wouldn't necessarily appreciate as a kid.
Before we get into those kind of aspects, like you say, it would have gone completely over my head, so it wouldn't have. And it's
about like mental health and stuff, which you wouldn't have heard about at that age.
But there were things that just stuck into my head. The Clean Plate Club, because remember I started writing my notes before we even started playing the movie. This is how much this film stuck with me. And I also remember Mars knitting needles. And the crazy thing about that was, looking back at it now, the scene with the knitting needles, it wasn't graphic or anything. I remember it being much more graphic when I was a child. Maybe because one of the first time I'd seen actually someone stabbed with some, long piece of apparatus kind of thing. So I'm really interested to find out what you thought about it, because it's clearly nothing that you'd ever heard of before. And I came to you a couple of weeks prior, and I said, I found this movie. I can't believe it. One from our childhood, and I can't wait to watch it. So take it away. I hope you were violated.
That's a bit of a strong word. I don't think it was that much, but I think with this one, as well as actually with Maniac Cop, they both looked old to me. Like, you get some movies from the 80s where even now I'm like, wait, that was from the 80s? Wow,
Considering
it looks
American
incredible.
Gothic is the same year as RoboCop. And it's chalk and cheese, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it also had that classic old movie thing of the intro was really slow for me. I was like, this is a really long build up, which is why I'm surprised that as a kid you got past that bit into the good bit, because I was like, this is taking forever.
As a kid, once it gets to the menacing, demented nature of the movie, I don't think I've seen a movie quite like it.
Yeah, once it got into it, there was a lot happening. So essentially what we've got is a group of, would you call them kids? Like college students?
Yeah, especially like college kids,
or something, yeah. So they're all off on some trip, but their plane...
Actually, I wouldn't say they were college kids, because one of them's had a baby and stuff like that. So
well, they seem
they're
really
not in
young.
school. Well, they're idiotic, basically, aren't they?
They seem very young. They're going on a trip, and their plane, like, crashes or whatever, so they end up
one of them has a plane, so they can't be students. Here's my plane.
So they end up where they weren't supposed to be, and
in the middle of nowhere.
and so they can't fix their plane. They're like, we need to go and find help. So they leave one guy with his plane, and the rest of the group, there's a few of them, they go off, and they eventually do find this house with two people called Ma and Pa. And the rest of the story goes from there. People get killed and all this.
Ma and Pa aren't straight in the house. So when they come across the house,
Yeah.
they do your favourite thing, House of Wax style.
This is... I could not... Oh my god, these characters are so effing obnoxious.
Did you want these characters to survive?
No.
Like, you want all horror characters to survive?
They pissed me right off. Who does that? It's like the Goldilocks thing. You go into someone's house and it was clearly not an abandoned house. And they're going through their like closet, putting on all their clothes,
playing
their records, dancing, basically making themselves completely at home. And I was like, you're all going to get offed and you kind of deserve it, because how obnoxious is that? Yeah. And then even when... So Ma and Pa, the owners of this house, they open the door and see them in the midst of all of this, you know, and...
fannying around.
They take it very well, apparently. But even so, I was like, even at this point, so this group has been, doing what they've been doing, and now they've been caught by the owners, still wearing their scarves and hats and coats and playing their record or whatever. Like, none of them's really apologetic either. I was waiting the whole time. I was like, right, who's going to profusely apologise for being so rude and
one of them does
Hardly.
Take the lead to apologise.
Barely. And the other ones are still just there like...
Yeah, the other ones...
I'm like, where is the... Oh my god, I wanted to slap all of them for their rude behaviour.
Well, then the trope has worked then, hasn't it? Unlikable, obnoxious characters that you
annoying.
Want to see annihilated.
So annoying.
Yeah, it's more about when Ma and Pa come in at that point, and like I say, they don't react in the way that you'd expect them to. In fact, Ma even goes up to him and says, "Oh, that hat really suits you. Or that scarf really suits you. You can keep it. And what's happened to you? You know, tell us why you're here. Blah blah blah. Blah, because there's no way that you can really get there." Before they get to the house, by the way, there's a little bit where they're camping. And do you remember the campfire grooving?
No, not specifically.
No? That surprised me, because you were absolutely creasing up at this campfire grooving.
This group of characters, they also left, as I said, they left one guy, right?
They left one guy by the plane.
This must be before they get to the house, actually, because I've written a quote. "I only die for Muff."
Yeah, only die for Muff, yeah.
So
that's
one of the
one.
girls... Again, I don't really know why she thinks that diving, she's going to catch fish. Is she planning on catching the fish with her bare hands or something? Like, that didn't make sense to me. She's like, "Oh, we need to dive for fish." And the guy's like, "I only dive for Muff." So the girl goes and does it. But funny quote, random situation. These people are idiots, basically. Yeah. And then they leave this one guy with their camping equipment and the plane. They're like, "We're going to go and try and find help." So then they go off, they find this house, all this stuff happens that I think is very rude. But I realised over the course of the film, this group has been in the house for a few days, right? It's not all in just one day. They sleep there a few nights and whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was like, they've literally just left their mate to rot with no news, no idea what's going on. It turns out he's dead. But they don't know that. And I was like, why has nobody said, like, there's like 5 of us here. Why don't 2 of us go and let him, like, in on what is happening?
Well, as you've already mentioned, we've already seen how obnoxious these people are. So they're going to be selfish and not going back. So you said there what we've got. But the reason they're going on the trip is because one of the main... Well, actually, the main character, the leading lady in our movie... She has had a baby, and the movie shows all of her flashbacks to this incident, because at the beginning she's shown going to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist suggests that she goes on holiday with her friends to get over this tragedy where she's left her baby in a bathtub like a newborn because the phone rings and she's got something on the stove. So she leaves the kid in the tub in this flashback, goes down, answers the phone, has a conversation for a while. We all know what's happening, but then even at the end of the phone conversation, instead of going up then, we then see her going to this bubbling stove, and then she's like, "Oh, wait a minute, my baby's in the tub." And she goes upstairs, she's like, "No, no." And it's so unpleasant, that whole storyline. And
I also, with that one, it kind of bugged me a little bit, because I'm like, I do understand, we haven't had babies, so I've never taken care of baby full time, but even I know, like, you cannot leave them alone, and that's,
That's kind of why the scene is kind of laughable. Even though it's a horrible thought and it's a horrible, unpleasant scene, it's still kind of laughable just because of the way that it's done.
She is supposed to be your heroine.
She's so silly.
Of course, it's an awful thing to happen, and I'm not saying it's her fault, but equally, I'm like, but it's hard for me to really feel for her because I'm like, it was just so stupid.
Yeah, that's very true. It's hard to feel because but it's also the heavy-handed, clunky way that it's done, which I think is something for me which adds to my kind of enjoyment in a perverse way of the movie.
But I think she's supposed to be really the only one that you actually like.
Yeah, I don't like any of them.
She's like portrayed as the least obnoxious. Like when everyone else is doing their obnoxious things, she's off like quietly exploring and stuff.
Yeah, she's also quite grating when she's having the flashbacks and it comes back to her in real life kind of thing. Like, yeah, she just wasn't sympathetic for me whatsoever.
No.
Doesn't really matter for me in terms of the movie.
But also I noticed they made it very clear. So for example, when Ma and Pa come and they're like, oh, is this you? Like, this is all of you?
Mm-hmm.
And that girl who lost the baby, her husband or boyfriend, I'm not sure, but the father of the baby anyway.
He doesn't seem to care.
He's completely forgotten that she's even there.
Yeah.
And it's clear, like, they've done it to show that, like, oh, he's, like, basically lost his feelings for her because of what's happened and all of this, and he's only on the surface trying to help her.
Yeah, she's an idiot.
But I was like, how can you literally just forget that she's there as well? It's so strange to me.
So we've mentioned Ma and Pa, and it's slowly introduced that Ma and Pa have children, except the children are like 45, 50, 55 years old.
And it's interesting that they're introduced in increments.
They think that they're 12 years old. And the first one we get introduced to is Fanny, who she's great, by the way.
She's fantastic. She was, for me, the best thing in the film.
Yeah, she is probably the best thing in the film, Fanny. And we get Teddy and Woody are the two guy children who seem to be even older than Fanny, who thinks that she's about to celebrate her 12th birthday. That was all, and Fanny there's a crib in her room and it's covered with a sheet, and when she meets the people that have infiltrated her house, she's about to show the lady who's lost her baby her crib, but at the last second we don't get to see, and it turns out that in this crib she has a mummified dead baby, which is kind of suggested that this kid has been made through incest. There's a bit where Fanny sees two of the characters about to have sex. She wants one of the characters, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Or she wants one of the men.
Yeah.
And she sees through a gap these two characters like getting, hot and heavy. And she turns to, I think, her brother Woody, looking at him. And he's like, no, Fanny, no, I don't want to do it again. She's like, shut up. I use you when I want to. So these three older kids have been having sex with each other. There's death of children twice in the film.
A lot of interesting deaths as well. I actually wrote down for once every single different type of death. So the first one we get is the swing.
What do you think about the whole swing concept?
See, we both have so much to say here. Yeah. There's like a few things I want to get out. So first of all, we meet Ma and Pa, and they're a bit weird. And then, they've got like a kid's room. And then we meet Fanny, and she's in like her little girl pink dress thing with the bows in her hair, but she looks about 50 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's really weird. And then the other two brothers, again, it's like one at a time. We it's like, oh, so you're never sure if someone else is going to pop
Teddy,
out, right? Which is really disconcerting.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think when we first meet one of the brothers, it's when Fanny and the brother are like, I have this swing that goes out over a cliff. And they put one of the guys who's discovered them into the swing. It's like, oh, you have to have a go. And they push him and push him and push him and chop the rope so that he goes flying off and dies, essentially. So that's the first death.
Yeah.
And again, it was like, the whole film has this really icky thing. And like you said, all of these small things. So it's not really clear where the baby comes from. It's not fully clear who's what with who in this family, but we know that they've got no contact whatsoever with the outside world.
No.
They've got no boat, they've got no radio, they've got no phone, they've got absolutely nothing. And yet, might I say, they've got a lot of very modern things. Like at one point when the two brothers are chasing down some of the surviving people, and they're dressed up as like cowboys and Indians or something. So you get one of the brothers with his cowboy costume, and he's got these two little plastic pew 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 guns, and I was like, right, well, how did he get those?
Well, they must have access to some things. They would have had to go and get food and things like this.
Well, yeah,
you know.
I mean, there's certain things I
and
can
they
imagine
are
you
adults,
can be self.
so they would be allowed out by themselves, even though.
But there's nothing else on this island, supposedly.
Yeah, and I get that. But again, you've got to kind of just let little things slide. But the one of the notes I had is there's a lot in this movie that almost should be laughable, but it's just not.
It's disconcerting.
It's just disconcerting, and that was the whole overriding feeling of the movie for me was demented and unpleasant, and I didn't want to ruin it by watching it again. And I'm so glad that it does hold up. And so we mentioned the death on the swing. I mentioned earlier on in the intro that Ma kills someone with, she gets killed by knitting needles anyway, and someone else, and I think she also does someone with knitting needles. The one that really got me, and it was still, shocking's maybe too hard of a word, but it's when Fanny stabs that dude in the eye, and you have this really jarring sound, and I can't remember what she uses to even stab him in the eye, but I haven't been taken aback by a kill in a movie for a long time, and watching that again, it did something to me.
No, for me the most disturbing thing was the necro. I'm not going to finish that word because YouTube might block our video, but one of the brothers... Ecre? One of the brothers, has his way with an oft person.
Well, I think
you don't see it, obviously, but you know.
I think it's the most beautiful member of the... Because I've written as well, I remember the blonde girl, I was thinking when I was younger that she was so beautiful to my young eyes, and she still is. And in that scene, you've got Teddy's watching from the bushes.
I'm going to tell Ma and Pa.
Yeah, I'm going to tell Ma and Pa because Woody has... I might get their names mixed up. One of them's Woody, one of them's Teddy. Doesn't really matter. But the bigger one, let's just call him Woody, he's got a hold of the beautiful girl and ends up breaking her neck. And then her brother sees this through the bushes and is like, I'm going to tell, blah, blah, blah. But then he's not finished. He then starts like ripping her clothes off. And... you know that what's about to happen.
You make me feel sick again, so let's leave that there.
but then he comes back to the house by himself because because his brothers run off to go and tell Ma and Pa what's happened.
And Ma and Pa are pissed off.
And he comes back and he has to go up on the mound to get his punishment where he's like whipped, half to death kind of by Pa. But it's also insinuated that this is not the first time that he's done this either.
Well, so I think, as I was going to say, was with all the things that we wanted to get out.
Will YouTube let us say incest? Because I've already said that as well.
I don't know.
Familial relationships.
Basically, we're never going to get monetized, but please subscribe anyway. Because, what I was going to say, all the like weird things in this film are so subtle, which is what's so brilliant about it. Because you get the thing of like, okay, so Ma and Pa really are the crazy ones, and these kids that they've had don't stand a chance anyway because they've been raised with no one else around them, and their parents treating them like they are pre-adolescent or whatever, and they live like the reason they're killing off these people is because apparently they're like sinful and bad and whatever.
Yeah, because they're a very religious family, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Ma and Pa, that's why they're like. So as you said, we get this insinuation. It's a very like glossed over thing, but we get the insinuation that these three siblings kind of use each other because of their natural instincts, and that's the only human around and stuff. But they get punished for it. Like Ma and Pa are like, no, you shouldn't be doing this, which you shouldn't be. But like, it's this whole thing of like, there's all these undercurrents that are so uncomfortable with and even just the undercurrent of our final survivor. So, sorry guys, I'm going to skip right to the end of the story here. Everybody dies except for the one woman who lost her baby.
Yeah, because Fanny's taken a bit of a liking to her during the movie.
Yeah, so Fanny decided... They all kind of decided that she was the one who wasn't so mean.
Because other characters have been outright mean to Fanny.
Yeah.
And have, been disobeying the rules of the family. So, as you say, they're so stupid that one of them starts smoking in the house. Rod Steiger tells her to stop smoking, and she gets in a huff about it. Like, you're smoking in this guy's house, and you're abandoned.
They're so rude. I can't get over it. Yeah, so then it's only her who survives. And again, we get this interesting scene where so she's been taken into the family through Fanny especially.
Yeah, and is this before or after the basement bit?
That's what I was just about to mention. So she's been taken into the family, and she's got, you know, matching dress with Fanny's, and she's acting like a little girl now as well. And it seems like, yeah, she pretty much has lost it.
Yeah.
And this is real. She's not acting. But then we get a scene where so Fanny's mentioned, you know, as we said earlier on, it's her 12th birthday, and she's going to get a new dolly. And we get taken down to the basement to see this dolly, and it turns out that the dollies they've been referring to are the dead bodies of all the previous victims. And they're tied up by that scarf that Ma said would look good on him, and he's now, lo and behold, tied up by
It's like another corpse tapestry, like
it kind
Jeepers
of is,
Creepers. Yeah.
And of course now, so the main girl, she's down there with the crazy family, and all of her friends from this trip. All of them are there now, strung up, dead in front of her, right? And I think it was interesting because at this point I wasn't sure anymore what was going on with her, because you kind of feel like, is she fully accepting, or is this going to snap her out again? But what ends up happening is, I'm still not entirely sure the process, but she has just completely lost it after all this. She's gone now mentally, and she ends up killing. So she kills them in the same way that a lot of her friends were killed.
Well,
That's what you mentioned with
I thought you were going to say something slightly different. So when we think that she's completely lost it in the basement, when she sees her friends strung up and she sees other victims strung up, and we think, so she has finally completely lost it. But there's still another level where she hasn't. There's still another level of her snapping, because when Fanny then goes and gets out her mummified baby for playtime. And the girl who's been taken in by the family, who's previously lost her baby, once she sees the mummified baby, all of a sudden she snaps again, and she's like, "Oh, it's my turn to play with Dolly. Give me my Dolly. Give me my Dolly." And Fanny's like, "It's my Dolly." They end up like having a tug of war with the mummified baby, and it breaks in half and stuff. And then she finally goes completely ape and offs the entire family.
And that's what I was going to say, is she offs them in a very similar way to that her friends have been done. So you mentioned the Ma killing with the knitting shit.
Giant knitting needles.
She takes them and does that to Ma. So we get her killing off the family in the same way that they were killing off her friends with everything. We get this interesting scene as well where Pa.
Yeah, while she's been killing all the family, Pa's been off. He's not in the house, so that's why she's like, she gets to do it.
Pa comes home and one by one sort of discovers his family. Yeah, and again, it was a really interesting scene to me, because this family is
uber religious,
awful.
Bible bashers.
I mean, they're killing everyone who comes their way, right? There's no excusing it. But you still kind of feel a bit like, oh, like that's all his family gone, and he's all alone now. But it's okay, because he gets offed as well, so he doesn't have to suffer for very long.
But what's great about his death, if you're done with that now? Yeah. So when Pa comes home, we previously mentioned that they're extremely religious, this family. But when he then sees that all of his family are dead, and also the girl who's killing all of his family, she plays dead as well.
Yeah.
So he thinks that she's gone as well. So he walks outside of his house after seeing his family decimated, gets on his knees, and he starts, talking to God. And he starts saying, "I renounce you now, God, and I invite Satan into my soul." And then, as soon as he says, "I invite Satan and renounce God," that's when he's killed. And that was just another nice touch that, he's going, if you believe in heaven and hell and that stuff, and despite what he's been doing, he's brought it upon himself now that he has no kind of like a redemption whatsoever, because he's now renounced God even. And that's when he's straight offed. And I think it pretty much ends there, doesn't it?
Well, I think this might be one of the darkest endings to a horror movie ever, actually, because we've quite recently even reviewed ones where, your lead person does get offed by the baddie, and the baddie is continuously going on and stuff. But in this one, it's almost darker, because of all the people, the one survivor is now the girl, and we see her sitting on the bed, still in her, like, Fanny little girl outfit, rocking the cradle and, like, smiling and singing to herself kind of thing. So now we're left with the idea of, like, right, so we've seen all this bloodshed, and all that's left is this insane girl. She's been driven insane by first the tragedy and then everything that's come after. And she's just essentially going to rot away in this lonely thing out of her mind.
I imagine that she's going to kind of acclimatize and somehow, not thrive, but just carry on the legacy of the house almost. Yeah, that's kind of the feeling that I got.
Well, maybe they could do an American Gothic too, where they've got, new people coming and she's there instead.
If anyone was to do an American Gothic 2, I mean, good luck touching the tone of this movie.
Yeah.
As we said, the whole incest, necrophilia vibe is the way you say infanticide. Yeah, infanticide. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
yeah, right,
so I'm saying if I'm saying it right. Yeah, and the whole and all of those aspects aren't just shoehorned in.
Yeah.
It's there as the overall feel of the movie. And the crazy thing about the beginning, you said you didn't like the super long build up and things.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what was going on.
The way that it starts off, when they first get into the aeroplane and they're setting off on their journey, and then the credits start to come up, like the opening credits, and they're flying over the city, you almost get this soundtrack as it's like an 80s American sitcom, like Dallas or something, like oh, we're going to the city and we have a great time, and it just quickly goes so far downhill. And I wasn't I don't know what to expect as an 8-year-old, but even if I'd seen that for the first time the other day,
which it was for me,
yeah, I'm not. I was still just, like you say, the ick factor, for want of a better word and things. I've mentioned the word unpleasant and demented, and that's the two ways I would use to describe this film. And I don't think there's anything like it out there.
No, I do think this is such a strong word, but I do think it's kind of genius. I think everything was hit so well, and it is multiple different things, and I love the subtlety and that there is so much. And I could probably sit here and discuss pretty much every scene in the movie. There's still things going through my head which I feel like I could mention.
Like what?
But I won't. Well, no, just even, we haven't even said that it's not like everyone's taken by surprise with the swing death. There are points where a couple of the girls are fully aware of everything that's happening, and they're running away, and they find the boat, and their dead friend is in the boat, and, they're using, I think, Fanny as a protection. They've got a signal gun or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're using that if you hurt us or don't help us, we're gonna off Fanny. And there's just so many aspects to it.
There's another killing as well where they tried to get one of the girls to play jump rope with them.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to.
No.
And normally kind of nursery rhyming kind of stuff is just so cliche. In this, again, it just adds to the dementedness of the movie. We're a bunch of weirdos, and they tie her up in the rope. Then it cuts away, and then we see later on that she's been strung up and hung.
Yeah.
And even, you've seen a million hangings in a horror movie. Just something about this one was just grotesque.
I honestly feel like we've said it already, but Fanny's performance, it could not be that casting couldn't have been any better, because it's so perfect, the way she looks with the way she's acting, but also it's not like, oh, you're an adult but you think you're a kid, go. It's there's more to it, because you still see all the emotion going on beneath, and her stunted emotional growth comes across completely.
The one of the brothers, the larger brother, he's actually got a prominent role in Tim Burton's Batman. He plays this bent copper called Eckhart, who is blown away by Jack Nicholson before he turns to the Joker.
Well, I don't know where I know him from, but the smaller brother, I've seen in stuff.
He's been in quite a few things. I think his surname was Pollard. So
I've seen him
in a few reviews he's mentioned as, he's from this, that, and the other. But because you've got Rod Steiger and Yvonne De Carlo, they're kind of above everybody else, because they're so the kind of cultural zeitgeist in movie and television. Now I would watch this film again. I'd watch it a lot again, because it's kind of unique.
It's so interesting.
Everything that it goes into is just so. I'm not sure if a movie like this would even get made anymore.
And it's so weird because it's not even dark.
It's not crazy dark.
Again,
is it?
It's in a pretty setting, a natural island, and it's kids' games and kids' thoughts, but it's all with this horrible undertone.
You get the same thing in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Some kids on a road trip, come across a house
to me.
And then they're still different movies, but to have something which is Texas Chainsaw Massacre-esque and still be unique and still be of its own thing, that says enough about it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so American Gothic, clear number one for me, even though I enjoy all these movies, Sleepstalker, Maniac, Cop, they're all really cool. there's just something about American Gothic which is extra grimy, extra dirty, just unpleasant.
Just you've not seen it before, so
and
it's great.
Yeah, it's kind of elements that are not in the same way, but there's an unpleasantness to heathen somewhat, and certainly a demented nature by the time we get into the second part of Heathen, even though it's only one story. So something that I can take away from this movie, and something that stuck with me from 8 years old and never left, and luckily hasn't diminished now in my adult years by watching it again. In fact, I probably find it a bit more disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine so.
And the last point, which I already made, should be kind of funny, but it's just not. Yeah. It's just disturbing.
Which is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's way better than the other way around when stuff is supposed to be disturbing and you end up laughing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So hats off to everyone in this movie because they've all pulled it off. And if you want to be grossed out, this could be a way to go.
Which I'm assuming you do if you watch our show. So thank you for joining us once again. And are we doing a special next week?
I haven't decided yet. Surprise.